What's up, dudes? Welcome back to another video of Tristan Stuff. Today I'm going to be doing something kind of exciting as a politics nerd. Though I don't know that many people are too excited about how this might go, but that's the 2024 presidential election. And so I'm going to be covering the presidency mainly. However, it might be interesting to look at the Senate briefly too, so we will, if I get that in real quick. But yes, once I get the Senate prediction pulled up, I will go to that. But yeah, hold up. Candidates, I just need to add independents. Preset colors, we'll do green, add candidate, and then this other category that I'll be doing, I call it spoilers, because they're what can make or break the majority, both in the Electoral College and then also in the Senate. So spoilers, and then with the case of the Senate, we'll look at independents. But that's not too important yet. For now, we'll just set up the presidential map, and I'll get the camera spinning. Alright, that's about the best I can get. So, if we look at our map, nothing's filled in. That's what we're here for. Now, if I scoot in a little bit, we can get our obvious. So, we'll start on the West Coast. California, of course, Democrat right there. Hawaii, Democrat. Colorado, safe, Democrat, we'll say. Then we had to jump over to the Northeast. We can put Delaware, Maryland, District of Columbia, Rhode Island, Massachusetts, Connecticut. We'll leave New Jersey off, and then we can put Maine's 1st District. We'll also put the state of Maine at large. And so that's what we have now. Republicans, what's safe? We have Utah, of course, Idaho, Wyoming, Montana, the Dakotas, New Hampshire at large, and New Hampshire's 3rd, New Hampshire's 2nd as well. Kansas, Oklahoma, Alaska, we'll say is safe. Not Texas, obviously. We'll go back. Arkansas, Louisiana, Missouri, Tennessee, Kentucky, West Virginia, South Carolina, boom, boom, right there. And we'll go Maine 2nd. So these are our, and Indiana. I also forgot Illinois for the Democrats. We'll go back right there. So that's what's safe. Of course, there's states that we know what's going to happen. Oh, I forgot New York for the Democrats as well. I'm apparently not on my game today. So yeah, that's what's safe. We obviously know some things that are going to happen for certain. But there are some states that we really need to watch out. We'll do New Mexico safe too. There are some states that obviously we know to look out for. So spoilers, we'll do Nevada, Arizona, Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, North Carolina, Georgia. I'd say those are our spoilers. So we'll get those last. But then we'll do the remainder. And this is where the Republicans really thrive in the likely states. So obviously Texas, Florida, Ohio, Iowa, and the remainder are Democrat. So Minnesota, Virginia, we will call New Jersey as a likely, and we'll leave them as lean right there. Okay, so this is what we're looking at: 225, 219, and these are our spoilers. Oh, and then I forgot to get these districts. We can also call this a spoiler. I don't think it's going to decide the election, obviously, but it is definitely something that could really go either way. If we look at polling data, which we'll do now since we're on our spoilers, it is technically speaking the closest district, or the closest of the categories. So, yes, that could be very close. Now, what to look for What are we looking at, right? What's happening? Why is it happening even? Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Michigan, Nebraska's District 2, Minnesota, Georgia, Arizona, North Carolina. These are spoilers, minus Minnesota, to the T, right? And we're seeing in all of them, except for Nebraska District 2, a significant Republican lean. So what does that mean? Who's going to win? And also, why is the lean so solid? Well, the answer is, if you look at the gray here, the other, that's why they're so close, or I guess why the lean is so significant, because there's a large other demographic, and that large other demographic comes from a Democrat. It comes from RFK Jr. So that's going to hurt Biden's chances a lot. Regardless, I don't think the election would go great for Biden, but I think that's hurting him even more. And at the beginning, we saw it was different. We saw that RFK Jr. was probably hurting the Republicans because people from the right tied to him so much on his anti-vax, I guess, stance. Then they were like, this is probably silly. We know that he's not going to win almost regardless. We know that he's got a lot of Democrat beliefs, or else he wouldn't be a Democrat. And we know that voting for him might mean that Trump loses. And so they didn't do that. But we do need to look at some other things, and why I think this election will go how it's going to go. And the answer, we got to look at polling differences. So we have the 2020 election here. And 2016, we know for a fact that the Republicans did much better than the polls indicated. All right, they performed a lot better. We see the same thing in 2020, and if you look at this column right here where it says margin versus Donald Trump versus Joe Biden, we look at the margin. You can see the actual results, which is this column, show a much narrower margin than the average of the polling is 7.9, favoring Biden, or any of the individual polls, 8.4, 7.2, and 8, right? So that stuff, that indicates the polls still favor Democrats. And according to this, it's by about 3 points. So take that as you will. And then if you look here, once again, same deal it's 7.4, 7.4, both those polls say, and then they have this, and then it's 4.5. I think that this is going to be mostly the same. I don't think the difference is going to be that much, maybe 2% nationwide, which means that Trump will win the national poll, or the national vote, by, I'll say 3 points about, exactly. We'll call it 3.1. So how's that looking in the swing states? Well, I think, generally speaking, swing states aren't as much of an accurate polling, ironically. I could be wrong about that, and we're not going to go too in-depth about the data there. But what we will look at is these margins and apply roughly the national average, give or take a point or so. So that would mean Pennsylvania, Trump by 5. We're going to call it likely, or lean, not likely. So actually, yeah, I already said Pennsylvania, so we'll do that. Back to the Republicans. Lean, right? How about Georgia? Does it swing back? And if we go here, we see Georgia 4.3 in favor of Trump. That's going to swing back. So Georgia. And I mean, once again, I think that these polls are maybe a little underestimating. We're going to call all of these leans, or at least a lot of them leans. We might change that up, but these are leans. Arizona, another switch. We'll see. And the answer is yes, another lean. If we go back to the polling data, it says that Arizona is 4.5 favoring Trump. That's why I kind of think that these are a little bit favorable to the Republicans, more so than in reality, because these are just major margins that you wouldn't expect in swing states that didn't go for this guy the last time. Now, obviously, there's a negative perception of about everything that Biden has done. Republicans are so furious at his border policies. Everybody has a negative perception of the economy. A lot of Democrats don't think he's done enough for issues like the climate or maybe even the rights of certain people, like civil rights, especially LGBTQ community, et cetera, et cetera. So, but everybody on all sides basically is dissatisfied with Biden's administration. And while you saw a lot of that still during Trump's reign or his presidency, he's no longer the president. So we're seeing that that's now changed. But we do have still some big deals here. North Carolina, it was so scarily close. Everybody was really banking on it. It narrowly went Trump last time. Same deal. You could even argue this is likely. And if we look at the polling data, 5 points, which is the line of lean and likely, you could argue that it's going to stay in the likely column. And I'll put it there. We're going to say that this goes by like 5.5, which is narrowly likely. Whereas Georgia, 4 points, roughly. Arizona, 3.5, 4 points. Pennsylvania, 3 points maybe. Hit Nevada. Nevada is actually going to be closer than I think a lot of people are giving it credit for. People think this is just some really, I guess, close one. Nevada's got a +6 for Trump, and I think that's grossly overestimating it. Once again, it's important to note we're kind of still far out, so a lot of things could change, including in the polls, and I think that might happen. A little more mellow for Biden, but we're going to give Nevada tilt. Wisconsin, I think, is going to be tilt. The high end of tilt, of course. So tilt goes up to 2-point margin. We're going to say Wisconsin's 1.9. Nevada is going to be closer. We'll say 1.2. Wisconsin, I'm going to go lean for Wisconsin, and we see this is kind of a major deal, and we'll say spoilers, we'll go tilt Republican, and this is going to be mind-numbingly close. Then again, it clearly does not matter how close it is. Now, why is this? Why do we see these margins so tight? And the answer, or why do we see Michigan more than Wisconsin? Especially if we go back to polling, Michigan 2.5, whereas Wisconsin's 3.5. Why are you flipping that? And I think that there's a significant amount of anger towards the Biden administration regarding the Israel-Palestine war in the state of Michigan. And that's largely because Michigan has one of the largest Arab populations in the country. There's Dearborn and Hamtramck, Michigan, which are Detroit suburbs. And if you look at the Detroit metropolitan area demographics, typically Muslim communities or populations make up about, I believe it's 8% of the metro population, which does not sound like a whole lot. And if you look at the state as a whole, it's more like 4, perhaps, I would imagine, or 5. But 4 or 5% who would generally vote for Biden, let's say usually it's 80-20 split, who are completely switching it now and going more like 70-30 Trump, that's a whole lot. That's from 4 and 1, right? So let's say it's a split state, 47-5, 47-5. Biden wins it with that 4 and 1 in 2020, and that's 51.5, right? Whereas now, if you see that switch to 70 and 30, that's 1.5, and that's what's it? Yeah, 1.5, and that's 3.5, and so that would mean that Trump wins at 51-49. And it's not perfectly split like that. You have it more, just a little more favorable to Republicans, which would make it lean. I'll say that this state goes by about 2.7 points, so about 0.8 more than Wisconsin. I accidentally clicked that on North Dakota. So yeah, that's about what I'm thinking is going to happen. So Trump takes the White House. Now let's look at the Senate. And our independents, we'll start with those. These both caucus Democrats, so just consider them part of the Democrats. But it's Angus King here in Maine. That'll be safe. And then Bernie Sanders in Vermont. That'll be safe. Spoilers now. We have John Tester, who is a Democrat senator from Montana. I don't know the senator there in Nevada is, but it's a Democrat. Arizona, Democrat as well at the moment. Kristen Sinema is not running. She was previously, but she's since rescinded. West Virginia is not really a spoiler. That's going to go Republican, but it was a Democrat, and that's a big deal. And that was Joe Manchin's seat. We have Sherrod Brown here in Ohio. I don't know who it is in Wisconsin or Michigan, but those are all going to be close. And Pennsylvania will be close. I will not call it a spoiler, though, just because I'm pretty confident that it'll go Democrat. But let's get our safes. So we have, obviously, Washington, California, Hawaii, New Mexico, New York, New Jersey, Delaware. And New Jersey, I think, is safe to call safe. Andy Kim is really going to be popular. This is Bob Melendez's seat, and since he's on his way out for various corruption things, Andy Kim is galvanizing the anti-Melendez Democrats behind him. That'll give him a good margin. I could see why somebody might think that the Democrats would lose a little bit in that state because it's already so close, I guess. And I don't really know what I'm saying. Since a Democrat is the one committing the corruption, maybe Democrat voters will feel betrayed by their own party and not vote. So low turnout for the Democrats means that the Republicans can bring it closer. Even some of them might shift to a moderate Republican. Switch to a moderate Republican. I can't speak English. But John Barrasso is going to win his Wyoming seat. Utah, I don't know who that is, but they're going to win right there. Missouri, Tennessee, Mississippi, Indiana, West Virginia is going to be safe. I don't have any doubt there. This is Rick Scott. I mean, the rest of these are not safe. Democrats, I think, are going to get this likely. Minnesota likely. I don't know who's running, so maybe it's even more of a margin for them. But, still. And then, both of Nebraska's are going to be safe. There's an independent candidate who kind of has a chance to bring it within safe margin, but still not going to win, and that's a guarantee. I don't know. I'm there. Democrats, no. Republicans, Texas, Ted Cruz. He's looking better than he was last time against Beto. Florida, Rick Scott. And we're already at 50, which means it doesn't really matter what happens. I'm going to say this is likely. No, lean, sorry. Pennsylvania. The senator, I believe, is Bob Casey. He's quite popular in the state. So in a red wave, you'll see this, I think, go lean. However, it's not going to switch. I know for a fact that's not going to switch. Now let's look at these. Spoilers, and really it's not a spoiler because the Republicans already have a majority, assuming Trump wins. But let's assume that prediction was wrong. We do need to see what's going to happen here. And so I think that we will have a Republican Senate. In these 6, they have to get one, and they will. I think Kari Lake is going against, I believe it's Ruben Gallego. That could be wrong. There is a Democrat, and then there's Kari Lake. And Kari Lake, she lost the governor's election, MAGA Republican, without a doubt. And definitely very popular in the MAGA movement. I think that she can galvanize enough support to win this state, especially after concerns about election integrity in Arizona, which is probably one of the more valid states of concern that the Trump campaign brought up, or that Trump specifically brought up. So Arizona, I think, could easily go to Kari Lake. It'll be very close. I'm going to go tilt Republican. Nevada, I don't know who either candidate is. There is a Democrat incumbent. We saw last time Republican, I forget his name, but he apparently went to naval school with Ron DeSantis. lost it by, I think, 2% to Cortez Masto. I don't know how this will go. We'll give the Democrats benefit of the doubt and say it's tilt Democrat. But that very well could not be true. Then we have the Republicans here. We're back to the Republicans. I think that Tester's going to lose, despite being a Democrat. The thing with Democrats in the Senate in states where you would not expect a Democrat, such as Montana, or even governor, such as in Kentucky or Kansas, is that those aren't completely they don't completely follow the waves in the state. So, or the national trends, like Republican red wave or a Democrat blue wave. I don't know if that's really a term, but a red wave or blue wave. So a national environment favoring Democrats or a national environment favoring Republicans, right? They don't really tilt with those as much as you would expect. And so Tester could keep his seat, for certain. I have no doubt. But is it going to happen? I don't know. I will once again give the Democrats the benefit of a doubt and call it tilt, but I would still consider that like a who knows what's going to happen. These two states both, which go tilt Democrat. Arizona, I do think will go Republican. I just think it'll be tilt margin. Wisconsin, I don't exactly know what's happening here, but we saw the polling data. Wisconsin 3.5. That's for the presidency, of course, but assuming they run a candidate who is relatively competent and the red wave is definitely redding, I think that this could easily be Republican. And we saw here, I went tilt. I'm going to say the same thing. We're going to go tilt with our Senate prediction, but I do think it'll be Republican. I don't know the candidates. That would help, obviously. Michigan, I think it's going to be the same deal. I do think it'll be closer margins than in the presidential election, so we will call it tilt, but I do think it's going to be Republican without a doubt. And now we go to Ohio, and I was talking about how states there where you wouldn't expect this to happen, like a Democrat in the Senate in Montana, where you wouldn't expect that to happen, right? They don't really follow the trends. However, Sherrod Brown is a holdout from 6 years ago when the Democrats were relatively competent, I guess, in the state of Ohio. Like, they were kind of there. They were competitors. 2020, and you could argue 2022, is really where that changed with J.D. Vance and Governor Mike DeWine. That really changed things in the state of Ohio, where you could say, yeah, it's pretty solidly going to stick to the Republican column. And so that could hurt Sherrod Brown. Sherrod Brown's pretty popular in the state, like Casey is in Pennsylvania. However, Pennsylvania is a closer state than Ohio is. And once again, a lot of that shift is very new, whereas Pennsylvania has just kind of stayed that way, stayed close. So I think that you're going to see this go Republican, and we're going to say it's lean margin. So that would leave the Senate 46 technically, but because the two independents caucus Dem, and the Republicans control the Senate, as well as the House most likely. I'm not going to do a House map. That's too much. But I do think it's the case, so hold on to the House, especially in a Republican environment that's very favorable. Now, I do think that this could change. Any of the tilt states, I would say, feel free to change the margins. But even then, the Republicans hold on to the Senate. And if you want to put Ohio back into the Democrat column, who cares? Trump's the president. Assuming Trump wins, assuming my presidential prediction is correct, Trump's the president, vice president is the tiebreaker. And so it really does not matter. But if we want to look at this as a 101 seat Senate, which includes the vice president, it's 55-46, which is a solid chunk of majority for the Republicans. Anyways, thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed my Senate prediction and presidential prediction. To Democrats, I'm sorry. To the moderate Republicans, I'm sorry. To the Trump supporters, congratulations. And to any third-party candidate, I'm sorry. I also want to add that for the presidential prediction, I think that we might be seeing the highest third-party vote since 1996. There is a millimeter per percent chance. Like, it's like, I'd say 4 or 5% chance. That you even see it surpassing what happened in 92. So this was a 89.9. So 10.1%. And if we look back at nationwide polling, sorry, that's the wrong thing. 14% is the national. Of course, some of those people are just people that haven't voted yet. If we look here, there's about a 3-point shift in that. So we say it's 11, right? 10.1 to 11. That's close. So I do think it'll be 96, 92. It's a very different story. They have to get 19.5, and I just don't think that will be happening. If we want to go with predictions of the popular vote, I don't think there's really a thing for that. But we'll say Libertarians pool 2.5%, maybe 3. We'll call it 3 just for nice numbers, nice addition. The Greens about 1%, and Kennedy about 7. So that's 11 right there. Others, maybe another 1%. So the Greens are going to do a lot better than they did in 2020. 2020 was just a consequential election for a lot of people. It's like, these are two really bad evils. Or one side would say, yeah, this is an evil, but that's a whole much worse evil. Like, significantly worse evil. So people thought that there was a significant difference in the amount of evil, I guess, because they say vote for the lesser of the two evils, or that's what we have to vote for. Well, that decision became easier for a lot of people in 2020, but now we're seeing Biden unpopular by basically everybody, including those on the left, and Trump still unpopular with the left, as well as some on his own right wing and independents. That third party vote is going to get massive. So yeah, I think Kennedy could get as much as 10, where he beat Ross Perot. The Libertarians are shaping up for an increase from the Jorgensen-Cohen ticket, which was 1.2%. Really quite underwhelming for them. I do think that the Greens, whoever they pick, it's going to be interesting. Cornel West, as well as a non-green, he's an independent, could get a large amount of support. He's definitely talked about by a lot of people. So you could see this. I predicted 12%. I could see this going up to about 17, 18%, meaning that these guys at the national level are getting really low numbers. But, generally you don't see a whole lot of change. People leaving the blue or the red in this little pie chart. You don't see a whole lot of change there. They mainly stick with their party. Most of the change is from the gray to one of the two. And I think that if there's going to be much change there, it's going to be towards Donald Trump. But I do think that it'll be a large third-party vote, and that could end up being what spoils the election for Joe Biden. Anyways, thank you all for watching this election coverage that I have. If you look at my Hogwarts shirt, my Harry Potter shirt, we really do see the candidates. I'll pan it down. All right, you have your Republicans, your Gryffindor, and your Ravenclaw Democrats, the Slytherin, right? As well as your Hufflepuffs, or not your Hufflepuffs here, Libertarians. Greens are your Slytherin, and your H is your RFK Jr. So we do see this kind of well represented. It's a very good analogy for the actual election, funny enough. But yeah, thank you for watching my prediction. I know it's long, but it's detailed, it's good, and I do think it'll turn out to be true. Give or take a few points changes and maybe a few seats changes. I do think that Donald Trump wins the presidency back, and the Senate goes back to the Republicans, basically regardless of what happens, though specific numbers could change. Anyways, thank you for watching, and I'll see y'all later.